Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Build, Paint, Play. I'm Dave.
And I'm Jake, and today we are joined by the fantastic Uncle Adam, who a lot of you may know, and I will let Adam give himself an introduction.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. My name's Adam, and I make a video pretty much every Friday on a website called on a website called YouTube. You may have heard of it, on a channel called Tabletop Minions. I've been doing it for about 10 years now.
Industry veteran.
Well, I'm old for sure.
Fantastic. Sorry, give me a second.
Industry veteran.
Well,
okay, cool. So I had to do just a little bit of shuffling here. Excellent. I can finally see a chat. Hooray! Cool. No. Yes, just a little YouTube channel, tiny one. It's just been doing for a little while now. I think
it's plucky. It's plucky, yeah.
plucky young channel. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think in one of the promo posts I said that it had been going for 14 years, but you corrected me. It's not quite that long.
Yeah, so the account started in like 2009, I think, or something like that. Originally, Tabletop Minions I was trying to start a wargaming club in my local area, and I came up with that name, and I came up with the logo, and I, registered the URL and the YouTube channel, all that stuff, and then it crashed and burned, sort of, like nobody seemed to be very interested, and I wasn't particularly good at building the group that I wanted to. And then when I decided in 2013 I was going to start doing my own YouTube channel, I was like, well, I have this URL and I have this account and I have the logo done and all that kind of stuff, and it makes sense for a YouTube channel as well.
Sure.
And so I just used it. So yeah, technically the channel started in March of 2013, but like I said, the account started in like January of 2009 or something like that.
Okay, cool. There we go. So it wasn't.
You were just laying the groundwork.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a long con. Is what it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Slow burn.
That's great. Well, as I said, Adam. I said to Adam before the show. I said we usually start off talking about hobby and things we've been up to. So first up, I'm going to jump to. Sorry. Feel terrible. I also said that before we got into the hobby stuff, I was going to show something from the Nova Open Charitable Foundation. So there's an organization I've been involved with since 2013, actually, as well. So I was on the board for 4 years. I've taken a break for a while, which is necessary to do sometimes. But right now they have their late summer raffle going on, and just transition to the photo of the Squidmar Miniatures Dueling Titans diorama that they've done. The two Warlord Titans fighting on an enormous diorama. This is the one that they traded up to. They did a whole 8-month-long video series trading from a plastic goblin all the way up to 2 Warlord Titans. And I think they've spent the last 2 or 3 months, maybe 4 months, working on the diorama itself.
And those are Titanica scale.
No. No, those
What?
Are 40K scale. This thing is enormous.
Those are Forge World Warlords?
Forge World Warlord Titans. Or as Emil and Lucas would say, Warlord Titans!
Where is somebody supposed to put this thing? In their front yard?
Wherever they like.
Where are you going to get it? Like, how are you going to get it home? Even are they going to ship it? Like, that's yikes.
Yeah,
you have to be in the immediate DC zip code to win, I think.
No, I mean, because they're in Sweden, you've got to be like within 40 miles of them.
Nice. There you go.
No, I think they're going to be building a crate on top of a pallet that will then be able to be shipped anywhere in the world. So the raffle tickets, there's a link in the show notes below where you can go and buy tickets to the Titan. The tickets are $10 a piece. And at the moment, apparently 10,000 tickets have been sold so far. So $100,000 has been raised by this crazy diorama.
Solid for a charitable foundation.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And there is somebody out in the community as well who is very, very keen to get a hold of this diorama.
It's Scott.
Pardon?
Is it Scott?
Probably
Is it
Scott. Probably Scott. But they've put up $20,000 as well.
Wow.
So that $20,000 is currently being held in escrow with the Nova Open Charitable Foundation. So the winner of this diorama can choose to take the diorama or take the $20,000. And then if they take the $20,000, the diorama goes to the person who put up the $20,000. So
Nice.
Pretty crazy thing. So if you were worried about being able to use Warlord Titans, you can take the $20,000 and buy probably 9 Warlord Titans. Or buy 7 of them and pay somebody to put them all together.
Dude, that's just wild. Like,
So, yep, absolutely crazy. But, yeah, I just wanted to mention that up front so that we can then jump in and talk about all sorts of other fun things. So now, quickly, Jake, hobby,
I actually did some hobbying this week. I decided that I want to finish my Iron Warriors, so I was scrambling, trying to clean the back room, trying to find my Forge World Iron Warriors transfer sheet.
Okay.
And I couldn't find it. I like tore the whole back room apart, and Ben was like, "Did you take it home?" And I was like, "I don't think so." I was looking everywhere. I have a massive collection of transfer sheets. Like,
Okay.
I have an old school cigar box. So it's like this, this deep,
Yep.
and it's full of stacks of transfer sheets. And then I have a small bag of the original transfer sheets. So I have some of the old school. Remember the old school Blood Angels logo with the downward turned wings?
Yep.
The yellow one. So I have 2 sheets of that. I have a bunch of the original Dark Angels transfers. So I'm going through all my stuff. I can't find it anywhere. So I finally found it, and I started working on getting all the transfers done on my the army I put together last year for this year for Adepticon. I'm putting the finishing touches on it, doing some weathering, doing all my transfers and squad markings and vehicle markings, stuff like that. So I'm hoping to get them done in the next week or so. And I did add in some little touch-ups here and there, like some of the black that I had on it. I had only done 1 coat to get it like on the tables at Adepticon, so I was like, that looks a little patchy. So did a couple coats today, kept thinning it down so it would look nice and smooth. But yeah, that the more I look at it, like that army is just it's gonna look really nice when it's done. I think I'm pretty excited about it. So
Awesome.
I think I was there when you were playing with the Iron Hands at Adepticon up in the 30K room. Yeah.
I was running my Iron Warriors and Chris was running Imperial Fists.
Yeah, I stopped by and it was a good time.
Yep.
I wish we got to finish that game. We unfortunately we picked that room and then got tossed out after like halfway through turn 3, and Hank was like, right, because they closed, and Hank was like, "You should have just let me know. I would have been like, yeah, you guys can just stay and finish your game."
Yeah, like they closed at midnight or something. Yeah. The security folks. Yep.
Next time, we'll have to plan ahead for that one.
Yeah, hopefully.
Any gaming we do at Adepticon. Very cool. Okay, just quickly, we're going to say hi to Scott, hi to Josh, Patrick, Jeff. Hello, everybody in the chat. Scott says, "Whoa, one of you 3 looks and sounds like they have a professional setup." I won't say which one. Adam's voice is very dreamy. Very dreamy.
I have a fancy microphone as well, so
he does his ASMR like also.
I've been asked, but I've never done it. Nope.
That's fair. All good. Fantastic. So we also had Potshot 506. Oh, do we know who that is? I don't know.
I don't. I can't see the picture. It's super tiny.
Yeah, work it out. But hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Adam, hobby time. I know you've been very busy the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I was at Gen Con at the beginning of August, and then after that, I was home for maybe 3 weeks, maybe 2, and then I went to Nova in DC, where I saw Dave. And then after that, I was home for about 3 days, and then I just went to Fort Wayne, Indiana for a trade show for the Alliance Open House, which is kind of Alliance is a distributor that basically get stuff from manufacturers to stores, and so I was at the trade show with that, kind of working with the folks from the Army Painter. So I was doing that. I just got home late Sunday night, and so I'm back here. I have been working on Imperial Guard Combat Patrol. I've been working on that mostly on Twitch. I stream on Twitch twice a week normally, although sometimes when I'm traveling I can't do it as frequently. But yeah, that's the project I've been working on the most recently is the Imperial Guard. I'm using a non-standard, just kind of made-up color scheme. I've had people poke their heads in and go, "I don't know which group is that," and I'm like, "I don't know, I made it up," and I'm fine with it.
Yep.
But yeah, I've been enjoying it, and I've gotten 20 of the Cadian shock troops done, and I'm just about done with the command squad.
Okay.
And then after that, I will be working on the Armored Sentinel, which is built and base is textured. It's been primed. It's been base coated. Using a color called Uniform Gray, which is kind of a cool gray over black primer, kind of a zenithal like that. And then I'm using other kind of cool colors and then be a little bit of browns here and there and some stuff. I'm keeping them kind of muted. And then after the walker, then there's the 2 field ordnance bases or field ordnance units, whatever. There's like one that looks like a howitzer, one that looks like a rocket pod, and then that combat patrol will be done. I'm going to eventually, like after that, continue along and actually turn that into a 1,000-point list, but I think that's going to be about as far as it's going to go. I don't really want to play 2,000-point games.
Okay.
I'm going to focus on combat patrol and some 1,000-point games, but I don't know. Initially, I had an idea at the beginning of 10th edition. I was like going to build 3 different 1,000-point lists, and now I'm kind of like, well, 1 at least. We'll see about the second one. You know what I mean? But
sure.
yeah.
So, why are you leaning towards that combat patrol / 1,000-point level rather than the 2,000-point level?
I just like the games to be shorter. I like to not have to focus so much on big numbers of units and big games that take 3 to 4 hours and all that kind of stuff. I've always been more of a skirmish kind of player. Right. So for me, combat patrol is like sort of a biggish, like a larger skirmish, but still kind of heading in that direction. And 1,000 points, like that's about it. Like I said, that's about as far as I kind of want to reach as far as that's concerned. After that, I'm not super interested in going a lot bigger. But like I may end up having more than 1,000 points, but at any given time, I'm only going to be running 1,000 points, so I can kind of swap things in and out. But I don't see myself even going to 2,000 points particularly. So, but yeah, that's pretty much the edge of where I want to go.
Okay, no, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Do you? I know in my normal sort of gaming evenings, I play with a gaming group every other Wednesday. We'll usually play we very rarely play 40k, but we might play. We're about to start a Silver Bayonet campaign. Just recently, we've done a Warcry campaign. With Warcry, because Warcry can be a nice quick game. We might play 2 games in an evening rather than 1. Are you the type of person that? So you like that shorter game? Is it so that you can play more?
Yeah, I mean, when the time allows, for sure. That's kind of the trick. Is that when the time allows, then I'm definitely interested in playing a couple of short games. But sometimes even then, like you play 1 short game, and then you're like, okay, well that's now I got other stuff I got to take care of or whatever, that kind of thing. But when time allows, and you set some time apart. Or set some time aside, it's real nice actually to be able to play like maybe 2 or even 3 short games versus 1 just real long slog of a game. That's not necessarily what I'm interested these days.
Okay, sure. How about you, Jake?
In terms of what, playing games?
Would you rather play the like a smaller combat patrol sort of size game or a larger 2,000 plus points?
I like the idea of combat patrol. I think it has a lot of really good sort of teeth to like get people into the game. My issue right now is the fact that it's and it sounds weird to say this, as a Space Marine player, you've got a bunch of options. But as a Blood Angel player, which is what I want to play, it's kind of a mess because like the Blood Angels combat patrol is good. It's well designed. It's not a Blood Angels list. Like I was like, I don't know who put this together. I don't know if this was just extra parts they had laying around the warehouse, but like it is the weirdest list ever. It's 5 incursors, so like stealthy, shooty guys, and then it's an impulsor transport. It's a librarian, and is it
aggressors? 3 aggressors.
Yeah, 3 aggressors.
Yep.
And I was like, what a weird list. Like you can put either of the 2 units in the impulsor, but it's just weird. Like I was like, this is not the kind of list that I want to play. And the rules are fine. Like every army now has their own specific combat patrol sort of break off rules. So it's like, oh, if you run this detachment, they have this special ability, and it's cool. It feels like an Alpha Legion army or a Raven Guard list. It does not feel like a Blood Angel list to me.
Right.
And I think technically you can run I can run the one from the Leviathan box, the captain, the librarian, the 5 Terminators, and the Infernus dudes.
Yep.
And I think you can run them as Blood Angels. Like you can give them the Blood Angel keyword, but then they get like the default abilities for that combat patrol. It's really weird. So
I painted my Space Marines from Leviathan up as Blood Angels with the idea that down the road I would add them then to the Blood Angels Combat Patrol maybe, and then add a couple more little things, and then boom, 1,000 points. But I haven't come across anything yet in the Space Marine thing that gives you any kind of benefit to making them Blood Angels or anything along those lines. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I feel like they're really kind of trying to dial back this force plays so much differently than this other force, and then this force, you know what I mean? Like they kind of mentioned that at the beginning of 10th when they're like, look, you can paint them whatever color you want, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's freeing, and it's a benefit to some degree. But on the other hand, I know people that are very invested in like, no, Blood Angels play this way and Imperial Fists play this way and blah, blah, blah. They're maybe not necessarily seeing that right now. So once the codices start to drop, then we'll probably see a different story. But in Combat Patrol, we probably won't. But again, Combat Patrol is kind of focused at people who are, wanting to get into 40K. It's definitely a primer, a starter, or people who just don't, like myself, who are just like, yeah, I've already been into 40K. I just don't want to play big honking games.
Yeah.
So
And again, so back to Dave's question. So I'm fine with playing Combat Patrol. I think it's a great idea. For me, I would rather just play a big game. Okay. I think I can get it over pretty quick, and even my like 2,000 point list, it's not that many units. Like I think every Combat Patrol is set up so you have 3 or 4 or 5 units max.
Roughly.
My 2,000 point list is only like 8 units, so it's not like it's a huge. I'm adding 3 units. It's not like it's a big deal. I like it. I also think the Combat Patrol, to Adam's point, you're definitely right. It is geared more towards either I don't want to say casual because that sounds like I'm being dismissive, but it's geared more towards like people who want to get in, get out, get a game, or people who are brand new who are like, how does this work? Right. And I think you're right. As the new codexes come out and as they make all these adjustments and stuff, I think you'll see things get kind of balanced. Like we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were doing the Leviathan unboxing. The Tyranid Combat Patrol that comes in the box has 0 chance to beat the Space Marine Combat Patrol that comes out of the box.
See, that's interesting because Sam has beat me with his Tyranids over my Space Marines probably 4 times already. I don't think I've beat him once.
Were you just letting him win? Like
I only have 3 units. I have the Terminators, which of course you would add the Librarian to. Yep. You have the Infernus guys, and they can't take a boss because the boss is the captain who is in Terminator armor. So you have 3 units, and one of them is a single dude. So it's real hard to take objectives. And when you're up against the Tyranids, I think they have 5 units.
Yeah. They do. The issue that we figured out was the fact that they have almost nothing on the board that can kill Terminators.
No, they don't.
They can get really lucky with the what's the big bug?
Psychophage.
We Psychophage? Refer to him as Truckosaurus.
Yeah, so
that's what we always call him.
It totally works.
Yeah.
Truckosaurus can get lucky with his shooting, and if he really maxes out, theoretically you could kill 1 or 2 Terminators, but you would then have to be close enough that you shot at them, which means that they're going to get to you. Mm-hmm. So if you got lucky and killed 2, the remaining 4 and the Librarian will murder him.
Generally what happens is I lose the Infernus. Like if I'm lucky, and Sam's gotten smarter about this, he doesn't charge the Infernus guys anymore because that's a bad idea. So it turns out. Yeah. But so now, or even charge or move anywhere near them if he can just keep bombarding them with those guys that have the shooters on the top of their heads. That works out pretty well. Yeah, those guys. So generally, those guys die super crazy quick. They're gone. And then all I have left is 2 units. And then the captain gets ganged up on and gets taken out. And then all I have left is my Terminators with the Librarian. And they can do work, but they can't take objectives. So I can kill a bunch of stuff, but he's already scored ahead at that point and stuff. Also, I'm going to be very frank here. I'm not a very good player. So there's that as well. Generally.
It's a bad combo.
Yeah, exactly.
Jump quickly into the chat. Scott Radham says, I think it was Vince Venturella who said, anyone who plays less than 2K or 40K is a wimp and very smooth-brained. Any rebuttal?
I don't know that. I mean, he's working on a Combat Patrol right now of Tau, so I don't know if he would say that necessarily.
It sounds sound like a Vince thing. Scott occasionally makes things up. So.
It's just Scott stirring the pot. That's all.
Yeah, no.
Just quickly, we've got Walkabout Games are in. Hi, John Steining, Chris Gorka,
Chris jumped on.
Josh Hafmeister, Jim Broadbent, Patrick Keith says, I've always been a skirmish style player, and it's super great that this is as prominent as now as it is. So I think we'd all agree with that.
There's so many good options. There's so many good options for skirmish. Yeah, I mean, like, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but like my business partner Ben, he is convinced the best game that GW makes is Kill Team. He thinks it's the strongest rule set, super fun, really flavorful. Like the Kill Team rules are really great, and the Kill Teams themselves are awesome looking. The fact that the first box they put out had those it was the orc like Blood Axe Commando looking dudes, and then the Kriegers. Like I was like, yeah, that's a great box to start with. But that's a really sound skirmish game too. Yeah.
I prefer the previous version myself. I don't like the new version. I played the heck out of the 2018 version. I really enjoyed it. And the new version, I think that part of the problem is that I had 8 different combat patrols all painted up by the time that they launched the 2021 version, and I think 2 of them were still legal after the launch. And it was because, like my Necrons there were some Immortals, there were some Warriors, there were some Flayed ones, and there was like a single death mark. Yeah. And then you couldn't do that in the new lists. The lists were basically, you can either take, 1 unit of something twice, or you could take a unit of, once of 2 things, and that's it. There was just like the flavor completely disappeared in my mind. Yeah. So that was the thing that bugged me, is that I couldn't have like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, even in that kind of a small group. I don't know. And the thing is, it's weird, is I like Warcry, and the new Kill Team basically pulled a bunch of rules from Warcry. But for some reason, the other thing that's a benefit about Warcry in my mind is that they just go build 1,000 points. You need a leader, and then whatever else you want to grab. It just needs to add up to 1,000 points. And I really like that because you can get really kind of interesting and flavorful. But yeah, I did not like basically everyone whenever I've mentioned that, people in the comments are always like, well, yeah, but we've got better like lists that are like got more interesting things in White Dwarf. And I'm like, yeah, then you got to buy White Dwarf. But I had to buy the compendium to begin with. Yeah. So like, why didn't they put like fun stuff in the compendium that we paid $50 for? So yeah, no, I honestly think, it's not exactly the same type of game. I still think that Space Hulk is very possibly the best rule set that they ever made. But that's a personal preference. It's also not really a skirmish game. It's a little bit more of a gateway game between board games and, miniature games. Yeah, I don't know. I liked the previous version better, but I get a lot of flack for that.
I think the hard thing for me was the fact that they've done 3 editions of Kill Team, basically. Like, because they did the first one that came out, and technically there's like a beta version that was out. Remember when they released, oh god, what was it called? It has the Blood Angel Scout on the cover fighting an orc, and it's called like it's like Armageddon Shadowlands or something, or Armageddon.
It was basically, well, no, that was technically Necromunda. That's what that was. Shadow War or Armageddon.
It wasn't Necromunda.
Well, no, it was literally almost exactly 2nd edition 40K, which was the original Necromunda, kind of, because you had the ability to pin, you had the ability to ammo jam or whatever, all that kind of stuff. And then they came out with it in the spring, and then in the summer they're everyone's like, oh cool, they brought back Necromunda, they just changed the name of it. And then in this later that year they're and now we're bringing back Necromunda, and everyone's like, wait, what the heck? And then Shadow Warmageddon just was nah, we didn't do that, that's just it
was so weird. Shadow
it was real weird.
This is not the box set you're looking for.
Oh, it's so weird. Adam Pratt, my one of my buddies, is another XGW guy. We were looking at it, and he was like, I've played this before. We're looking through it, and he goes, it's Necromunda. And I was like, what? He goes, it's Necromunda. It's the same exact rules. And I was like, why aren't they calling it Necromunda? He's like, well, you couldn't have Space Marines in Necromunda. And I was like, I guess, but it's Necromunda. And then, like you said, they were like, don't worry about that. They just used it as a beta test to see if anybody wanted to play Necromunda.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was weird.
All good. Excellent. Looking at the chat, Jim says, playing my Space Wolves as a 2K list is definitely more fun and a better list than the Space Wolves Combat Patrol box. Scott says, the best thing about being a painter gamer today is I can grab and paint anything, and it works for at least 15 good viable rule sets.
That's true.
for sure.
Yep. And he also says, I think the last version of Blood Bowl is their tightest rule set, if we're taking opinions.
Blood Bowl's never changed. It's the same game. They've
Essentially, yeah.
like they've tweaked a little thing here and they're like, oh, you can do this, or here's an edit. It's the same rule set. Blood Bowl is the same Blood Bowl.
Yeah, it's probably one of easily their longest and least kind of fiddled with as that I can think of.
Yep.
So, question for you guys about Blood Bowl. I don't know how much Blood Bowl you guys play, but every single game I play, my first half always takes at least twice as long as my second half. Every game. I don't know what it is. Every game I've played.
Well, you're losing guys through the game, right? So you've got less models on the pitch at the end.
So I thought it was that. That's irrelevant. It literally has nothing to do with that. It's. I think what I've tried to watch is it seems like if Adams were playing his Black Orcs and I'm playing my Wood Elves and I take my first turn, I'm like, oh, I move near this guy, and Adam's like, oh, he has Frenzy, and then this other guy has this thing, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then he's like, oh, you're gonna use this guy, and I'm like, yeah, that's my War Dancer. So he has Leap. And he has, whatever. And he's like, okay, cool. So it's like we're figuring out each other's armies in the first half. And then the second half is like, okay, stay away from that guy. I'm going to do this thing. I roll a 6, I roll a 6, I roll a 6. I go for a touchdown. Like, it's like...
I don't know. I love Blood Bowl, and I love playing with humans in Blood Bowl. And doing the thing where all of my linemen are expendable.
Yeah.
So... you put one guy on every one of your opponents, regardless of whether they're like a clan rat or a rat ogre. And then you use your big guy to push a hole on the flank, and then just on the wing, and you just run somebody else down and try and cage them. Not a big cage, just a little cage, but you just got to slow people down. So I've had
West Coast offense with my Wood Elves. I send my 2 receivers up the sidelines, and then I just chuck a bomb, and then they catch it.
No, I usually I'm always going for the scoring option, and so my games are usually like 5. I usually score 5 or 6 touchdowns during the game.
Nice.
I think 8 was my highest.
Pretty good.
Which is pretty
good.
It's pretty huge. That was like a touchdown every 2 turns. So, I love that game. It's definitely cool. Nice.
Yeah. So Josh said, or Jeff said, yeah, I really love Blood Bowl. Josh says best GW game was Trolls in the Pantry. Oh my god, I remember that game. After that, GW just hasn't been the same. It's all been downhill. Scott says Blood Bowl is way different. Games used to go to score of 3 and no time limit. The 2 8-turn halves, failing the equivalent of turnover, etc. All great changes. Newest edition is a bust for me. Jim says I've been looking forward to the Viking based Blood Bowl team. Yeah, the Norse team is awesome.
Yeah.
Scott said, "Oi, that's me leg." That's another one. Over Trolls in the Pantry all day. So
we'll let those guys argue about it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to jump in and we're going to have a look at some photos that both Adam has sent through to me, and also some that I snagged from the wonderful internets.
Sure.
So we can jump in and talk a little bit more about Adam. Just quickly, Adam. Uncle Adam and Adam Loper, are they 2 separate identities, or?
Well, not anymore.
Is it just another name for the same?
No,
is it an alternate persona, or is it just another name?
He has the glasses
like, I
on.
could be Dave or David. It's the same person.
Sure.
It's the glasses, Dave. When he has the glasses on, it's Uncle Adam. When they're off, it's
right.
Generally, for me, it was a situation where I started, just doing the YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. And then what happened was, I used to play Car Wars like a long time ago, back in the day when I was in college, and there used to be, there was this character named Uncle Albert, I believe, and he basically, instead of them making a new book to upgrade things and add new weapons in Car Wars, what they used to do is they had a quarterly magazine which was called Auto Duel Quarterly, and so because of that, they would have this quarterly magazine that would have stories in it and this and that and all kinds of stuff. But there would also be all these ads in the magazine, and the ads were all fake ads for stuff in world.
Right.
So it would be a new type of mine dropper, that you could like shoot mines at the back of your car, and it would be an ad and it would be funny and stuff. But along the bottom in very small print would be the stats for that new weapon. It would tell you how much it costs in game and what the damage was and this and that and all that kind of stuff. And it was a super cool way to do that stuff. Well, once a year, I believe, they would put out this little book called Uncle Albert's like Auto Duel Emporium or something like that. That would basically put a bunch of that stuff together, and you could buy that book instead, and then have a bunch of new things and all kinds of junk like that. Yep. And that Uncle Albert, he was kind of like a crazy TV Eddie kind of a situation. And so at some point when I was coming up with I wanted to do a series about pro tips, because I love the term pro tips, because I'm definitely a pro. And so just the name came to me like Uncle Adam's Pro Tips. And it just sort of popped. The first one that I did, I don't even remember which exactly it was, but it just popped into my head. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. And they always say you can't make your own nickname, but it seems as if I unintentionally did. And so it just kind of went from there. Yeah.
Awesome. There we go. We have the origin story for Uncle Adam.
Indeed.
Excellent.
This video is going to get so many views.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to switch over now. Transitions to the first photo that we've got here. So if we talked about this before the show. We'll talk about a little bit about your painting, your love of a wide variety of miniatures, and also cool photos. So this first one is the enormous sort of hulking suit of armor with the skull face. Yeah,
I frequently say that I'm a better photographer than I am a painter, and that's probably still technically true. I've been a photographer since the late-ish 80s, probably since about 86 or so.
Okay.
So I like to paint, but I also do like to set up like cool little kind of tableaus and photograph that kind of stuff like that. This guy here is he is from Reaper Bones. He's a Reaper Bones. I think it's Reaper Bones Black, where it's that kind of dark gray plastic instead of the white kind of super bendy stuff. This stuff isn't particularly as bendy. This is a Maggotkin Ogre Juggernaut, or an Ogrekin Maggot Juggernaut, or something like that. I can't ever remember the name. Yeah, it's a combination. It's like Taco Bell. They just keep kind of slipping all the words together in different organizations and stuff like that. And but anyway, it's a cool model. I saw somebody else paint it, or I saw it someplace else, and I was just like, oh, I want one of those. So I went and looked online and found it, and then got it. And then I primed it with a really old rattle can, as it turned out, and it got all weird and fuzzy, and I was like, whoops. And then I had to clean it all off and strip the primer off, and then I started again and used my airbrush the second time, which is what I should have done in the first place. But I just really enjoyed doing it. It's a very, it's a very quick. It was just like, black primer, silver spray, kind of a zenithal. And then it was a lot of like going through. I also did a lot of texturing before I did the priming as well, with liquid green stuff, and kind of poking at it to kind of, because there were some gaps and things like that. And liquid green stuff is literally useless for filling gaps, I find. But it does make a nice texture. Yeah. But if you like really pack stuff in there for a while and then do a bunch of texturing over the top of it, it kind of looks more like rust underneath, which is cool. I did a lot of that, and did a lot of contrasts and washes and things like that to do the rust bit and all that kind of stuff. And then just use normal I use my normal bone recipe basically for the head, which is to generally start with like a chocolate brown, wait for that to dry, and then do like some sort of ivory or something like that. Wait for that to dry, then do a sepia wash over it, and then kind of go back and start highlighting again with like the ivory, and then a brighter ivory kind of for highlights and stuff. But it's just a lot of fun to do that, and then to kind of set up some terrain in my studio and set up some lights and kind of get a very moody kind of shot of this kind of hulking monster sort of, meandering around a bit in the ruins and such.
He looks great. I love the ratio. He has like that gorilla ratio where like his arms are huge and his legs are really small.
Yeah. That's I think what's really characterful about the model as well, and I was really kind of cool with that. So.
I was going to say the saturated green in the background is that just that wonderful undead sort of color, that or saturated purple. But,
Yeah. I have this 5 foot by 7 foot, one of those pop up, like it comes in a round,
all right.
Like zipper case, and then you pop it up once, and then you're like, well, I'm not getting that back in the case ever again. and there are videos online you can go look at to watch to figure out how to get it back together. But like the round ones are easy, but the rectangular ones are surprisingly puzzle-like to get back in there. But you can do it. But anyway, it's black on one side and white on the other side. So I like to use that as backdrop. And if I'm using the white side, then I have this like LED RGB tube that was not cheap, but it is like 4 foot long. And so I can literally just pick whatever RGB color I want, and then boom, there's my backdrop. So I can be, green or blue or orange or whatever, and that kind of stuff. And you can also change the brightness. You can change the saturation, stuff like that.
Right.
And it works great for backdrops like that.
Cool. No, definitely looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
The next one we've got. Sorry, just quickly, I noticed that Potshot 506 said I went and bought one of these first time I saw it. So, talking about the Juggernaut.
Yeah, it's just a really super cool model.
These models are the best.
Now I've got some of
these are the skeletons from Crimson or
Curse City.
Curse City. Yep. Yeah.
I mean, now they're just the skeletons for Soulblight Gravelords, but they're just a super nice box. If I ran skeleton foot soldiers, like I would paint 1 million of these.
Are these the same like exact sculpts as the ones that are now available in separate boxes, or are they slightly different?
Slightly different.
Yeah, I think that now they're like, instead of being a push fit like this, they're a multi-part kit, but it's the same. Like you wouldn't
same
know
styling,
if you mix them in, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah, same styling. You can fit them all in together for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh
they're gorgeous though.
These are the push fit. Which makes them sort of hard to paint in some situations, just because you can't, like, there's a lot of like femur bone going up inside underneath the flowing kind of skirts when it's real hard to get in there when you can't, like, subassembly them. Though I'm not super huge into subassembly because I'm generally kind of lazy, but these were even a little bit harder to get up in there sometimes to paint. I painted these guys on Twitch, and they were a lot of fun. And then again, it's just a lot of like, speed paints and contrasts and stuff like that to kind of do the rust effects over the sort of silver, kind of armor and everything like that, and get a lot of rust effects on the lower parts of the shields and all that, and just speckle things up. But yeah, and then again, just like a fun kind of graveyard looking-y kind of thing, as far as background shoots. I like I said, I do enjoy doing those and kind of building those out. And my plan is to move my studio pretty much back actually to the house. I have a studio downtown up on the second floor above a business, which is most times too noisy and all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of want to be able to come back and bring everything back home, and then I can work on this like at any time. I can just be like, well, I'm going to go downstairs and work on some photos and stuff, and I can keep the lights set up in a bit of a better situation if possible, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, the studio is kind of small that I have currently, and not that my basement's huge, but just moving it back, I think is going to help, so that I can spend even more time on this. I want to get a tiny smoke machine. I think that'd be sort of fun too, but I haven't really looked into it too much yet.
I just saw something came through my feed earlier today, or maybe it was late yesterday. Somebody's doing a Kickstarter for a small smoke machine, something that's much closer to like a vape pen size than large fog machine, specifically for photography.
It would make sense.
They're targeting photographers for that, and it was like,
well, because there's a spray you can get, but then you have like this residue all over the place.
I know there's a way. I know there's a company that already makes them. A buddy of mine has one that he does a lot of like model like photography, different scales, and he has one that some guy made for him. And I was like, "What do you mean he made it?" He's like, he made it out of like, it's like fish tank equipment. It's like all these like pumps and compressors, and he uses like dry ice that he just buys and puts it in it, and it just cranks out fog. But it's it's little. Like it fits in a little box that he has. I was like, that's crazy. So I know that they're out there.
Yeah.
There are already people that do it for like model trains and stuff like that. Like whenever you have like volcanoes or some sort of feature.
Or like, or even just the smokestack on the train. There's like some sort of fluid you can put in there that when it gets hot inside the thing, then it kind of comes out. Yeah, I had a friend whose dad was big into model trains when I was a kid.
There's one that like I know Chris O'Neill, who's a buddy of, I don't know if you know Chris. He and his wife own Ninth Level Games. They make like Kobolds Ate My Baby and stuff like that. So he has a little, I think it's by the guys at Dwarven Forge. So it's a little like shrine thing, and it looks like a fire or like a pyre, and they just put water in it, and it's like a dehumidifier almost. It just spits out mist. It's just water vapor, and I was like, that's genius.
Yeah, I think I've seen those too.
The how did you do your rust on the knights? What did you use? Is that just like a sepia wash or?
Generally, what I like to do is I like to speckle colors like in the contrast line. Skeleton Horde is a pretty good one. In Army Painter stuff, like in Speed Paints, Bony Matter is pretty good. Pallid Bone, I think, is another one. If you want to get like real light, like it's just starting to get kind of a bit corroded without heading too into the orange, then I very frequently will kind of do a lot of stippling with Howling Sand is another one from Army Painter that works out real nice. So yeah,
cool.
Nice. I don't usually do a lot of like metal fatigue or rust or anything like that. And with the Iron Warriors, just to like break them up, I didn't want them to be, oh cool, a bunch of silver tanks. So I've been using lots of like Agrax Earthshade and Sepia, but like it, because of the way I Zenithalled them, it doesn't really have enough like oomph to stick to the model. So maybe I'll try your move and try using some contrast paints.
Yeah, you want some speed paints or contrast paints because they do have they're less transparent than the washes. So the washes, if you want to start getting real subtle, great. But if you're trying to like, I still want it to be transparent, but I also want it to be like like one of those colors that heads a little bit towards rust. It's like a warmer kind of maybe orangey brown or something like that. Yeah, then I would definitely use those. And again, I have a tendency to stipple, or sometimes I will go in and I'll like put in a little bit of water first and then put that stuff in there and kind of move it around. But you got to be a little bit careful with that because they'll get away from you sometimes.
Excellent. I switched over in between, not knowing that you were going to ask that question, Jake, but also in the two brutes that we've got here. And with he's got some more sort of rust and weathering on these guys.
Cool.
Oh yeah, no, I did a lot of work on that, especially on that shield that the guy was carrying. This guy in front of him. Yep. Yeah, these are 3D prints from Archvillain Games, and they've got a Patreon, and like 1 month they just did like their whole kind of their interpretation of like Deathcore of Krieg. So when everything from like foot soldiers to these guys who are kind of Ogren sized to even some like bigger vehicles and stuff like that, they had this whole bunch 1 month. And these guys I thought were just really, again, very characterful and very interesting. And I really liked that shield. And I'm like, I had ideas. So again, it was like either a black or a super dark brown prime. And then it was a lot of just like an actual, like a zenithal of silver for the most part for my airbrush. And then I used some, for those stripes on the front, I used... Death Ray Designs makes a bunch of airbrush.
Oh yeah, they're
like slightly sticky, kind of like a Post-it note.
Okay.
And so so you can peel it off and then just stick it down over there, and then actually Post-it notes are kind of a bit of a pro strat, at least in my mind, in the airbrush room, because like you have this thin strip that's the stencil that you put over it, but you also don't want to get silver above or below that thin strip. So then I just stick a Post-it note up here and a Post-it note down there, and now all that's available is the actual stencil, and then I can kind of just spray through there and then go back and then sponge and kind of touch up, because you want basically to kind of you're trying to chip the paint away, the yellow or whatever, but instead of chipping it away, you're actually just trying to cover it up with more silver, so it looks like it's been chipped away, but it actually hasn't. You're just covering it up. But
Pro tips.
Yeah. And then just a bunch of edge highlighting after you do a bunch of rust and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that's fun.
Fantastic. Cool. Just quickly, Tabletop Super Show. I think that's Stephen is here. Glad I made it home to catch some of this live. What's up, everyone? Jim said he just shared the link for the podcast on a couple of different groups. Fantastic. Thanks, Jim. Scott said Curse City was a great box of minis. The game, a rank or two below meh. Adam Abramovich popped in. Just stopping in to say you three are handsome. Time to put the kiddos to bed. Be back soon. Somebody said very cool Blanchitsu style grimdark. Fantastic. So the next model I'm going to transition to. So obviously with all of that weathering and that rusting work was all headed towards your entry for the Capital Palette at Nova.
Yeah, I figure it's the best idea to paint what you're comfortable with. You know what I mean? Especially if you're going to try to enter your first ever, paint competition. I've never done really display painting before. I like to do tabletop, and I generally like to speed paint, but I do sometimes take a little bit extra time to add a little bit extra here and there, especially like on HQ units and just things that I think that are interesting. One of the reasons I'm a bigger fan, frankly, of skirmish games is because generally you can paint 8 models and it's an army versus 68 or 108 models, and then you have to go through a lot more stuff. So this way, when you have fewer models, you can go through and paint and spend a little bit more time on individual models. Last year, 2022 at Nova, I was pushed a bit, maybe some would say potentially bullied, into that I should definitely try to enter the next year.
I would have said
in the
sure.
capital. I mean, sure, it's semantics at that point. But yeah, so I had a bunch of people who were like, "You should give it a try," and so because of the nature of that particular contest, which I think is one of the best ones out there in my opinion, because it is very accessible. You look at something like Golden Demon, it's got to be a GW model. That makes sense. I get it. But also everybody, like people like Vince Venturella and Eric Swinson and like Ben Comets and like all those folks, I'm in the same, like up against those folks in the same situation, and I'm like, it doesn't seem like it's going to work out for me. And then also, it's a podium kind of situation where in each category there's like, I believe there's just like 1 gold, 1 silver, 1 bronze, and everybody else don't let the door hit you. So the thing that's nice about Capital Palette is that there are 3 different divisions. You have apprentice, you have journeyman, and you have master, and then in each category you then have there's not just a podium. You could, I think, because I entered this in single figure apprentice, and I think that I was one of 4 or 5 gold medals.
I think it was about that.
But then there's also X amount of silver medals and bronze medals and finalist pins and stuff like that. So it's a lot more. It's not like not everybody gets it. It's not like it's a participation trophy, but it is definitely a situation where there's not just like 1. Now there's also best of category, so there is one person who becomes best of category for that specific category within that specific division. But in general, yeah, I like the competition. I think it's very, very, very well done, and it was massive this year as well, as you obviously know. So that was very cool. But last year I was like, all right, if I'm going to enter this, I want to do something that's going to take a lot of like decay and corrosion and all that kind of stuff, because I love noodling with it, just poking at it and doing a lot of stippling. And I think, again, it's probably one of my stronger points in painting. So I just decided on that model, and then I built it in December, and then I, every couple of days I didn't touch it at all till about August. And then basically the last 30 days before, not even the last 30 days before the convention, I actually started painting it. Right. So, yeah, that was not smart. That was not the smart play, as it turns out. But yeah, I did get to enter it, and then I got to I won a gold medal, as I mentioned. So that was very cool. So yeah,
congrats, man! It's an awesome looking piece too. I love that you went with the original Death Guard paint scheme, like the cream.
Yeah, the cream and the green, and then that was my idea, because I like the box art. It's like he's all green and whatever and all that. And I'm like, I feel like the cream kind of color. It does harken back to the original Death Guard colors from the Heresy, but also I feel like me going through and weathering that cream is more of a, it's more noticeable than if it's on like a mid-tone or whatever kind of green. So I thought that would be a little bit more interesting that way. So
No,
when,
I
when
agree.
your ooze and when your ooze and rust are in that mid-tone sort of genre, you've got to go lighter or darker, and
right.
That's always.
It's also great because like that bone cream color. It's so great at like conveying grime.
Yeah, exactly.
So like green just looks like green. It's either light green or dark green. Whereas like that, you're like, oh, he's dirty. Like that's
excellent. Cool. No, thank you very much
Is
for
that
entering that.
Is that one of the Blight Lord Terminators?
It's a Death Shroud bodyguard is technically what it says in the box. Yep.
Definitely cool. And the texture on that, the rust on the sides there is just beautiful.
That's
I always love that gut jaw plate.
Yeah, with the tongue and all that stuff. Yeah, the rust is like basically I did all of this with Army Painter, airbrush paints and washes and all that kind of stuff, blah blah blah. But the actual scythe blade, I used that dirty down rust stuff.
Okay.
And I was pretty successful with it. I haven't completely gotten the hang of it yet, but it does work pretty well. But I also feel, and this is on me, and this is some of the feedback I got, it's probably the weakest part of the entire, like I got to a point where I kind of gave up, I'm like, I have to get this done because I said I was going to, and I was just like, okay, some dirty down rust, I'll put a little bit of edge highlighting on there, I'll do a little bit of this, and I should have really spent a lot more time on that blade, and the whole top head part of that scythe, but I kind of just was like, I got to do the base next, and I did that, and then it was, so yeah, it's, I am kicking around the concept of going back in actually and sort of tweaking it a bit and kind of, putting a little bit more detail in there and doing a little bit more work and then just, and then having it on my shelf that way. But that'll be that'll be a little bit down the road. We'll see how that goes.
Cool. Excellent. Okay. Now I'm going to jump into some photos that I stole from the internet. Here we go. The first one is from one of your earliest videos, perhaps. So, what I wanted to ask you about this one,
there we go, yeah,
and about your about the the genesis of Tabletop Minions, the YouTube channel. When you started the YouTube channel, what was your vision for Tabletop Minions?
My vision was I wanted to learn video production.
Okay.
So I literally I want to learn. So it all started in 2010 when Beasts of War, they put out a video about, they were updating their website and they were putting out a video talking about that. And my day job for years was web designer. So I was like, well, that's interesting. And then also they mentioned Gen Con, and I was going to be going to Gen Con in about a month or so. Again, this is 2010, I believe. So I watched the video and they don't really talk about Gen Con at all, except till the very end when they're like, hey, if you're going to Gen Con, let us know in the comments below, blah, 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 it's coming up. So I said, yeah, I'm going to Gen Con. I've been going to Gen Con since 1992. And then the next day, back then in YouTube, you could send messages to other viewers and stuff like that. Like you can't do that anymore. But back then you could. So I had a message in my inbox, my YouTube inbox from Beasts of War saying, hey, you're going to Gen Con. Do you have a camera that can shoot, HD? Do you have a microphone? Would you be interested in interviewing people and doing stuff like that? And I was like, yes. And so I did that. And I was kind of their U.S. correspondent for a couple of years. I would go to Adepticon and Gen Con and interview marketing people and all kinds of stuff like that. And, awesome. And then I would send those videos back during the convention. I'd go back to the hotel room, and then initially it was FTP, which was a mess, but it was the only kind of viable option. But eventually Dropbox came along, and then you could and then when the crappy hotel internet dropped, it would just pick back up where it left off, because that's what Dropbox and stuff like that does. So I'd be sending it over to them and they'd be doing the editing. But I just decided at one point I wanted to do the editing. I wanted to kind of do my own thing. And so in 2013, I started the channel in March. And this screenshot is from the intro to Tabletop Minions video, where I kind of talked about, starting the channel and what I was planning on doing and stuff like that and whatever. It was literally not until 2015, though, that I kind of figured out what direction I was going in. I was making videos about wargaming because, I want to teach myself video production, but it's a good idea to teach, if you're going to do that, to try to make, videos based off of things that you're interested in. And wargaming had been my hobby for quite some time. So I was like, well, I'll make wargaming videos. But it was like scattershot kind of all over the place. It was, there was a video every 3 weeks, and then it was a video once a month, and then it was a video in another 3 days, and it was just kind of random. And they were all kind of random also, just roughly about wargaming. But in 2015, I decided I should really come up with like a mission for the channel, and that was to get new people into tabletop wargaming and the tabletop, building and painting and whatnot hobby.
Okay.
Because it is a good hobby. Both sides of it are great, especially the painting and building. I find it to be very stress relieving, and it's meditative and all that kind of stuff that I talk about all the time. And then the other decision I made was to start putting out a video every single Friday. So sometime in like September or October of 2015, I started putting out a video every single Friday, and I haven't missed one yet. So, so that's kind of how that was sort of the genesis of all that. But that video is kind of the initial one. So
Right.
Nice.
Fantastic. How does it feel to look back at that and see and think through that process?
I think that it's a lot different now to some degree. I think if you're starting a channel in this day and age, it's a lot different. Like, I was basically trying to teach people, and I still am. That's really still the goal. I think if you are a new channel and you are trying to start out, I literally didn't really, I'm still technically kind of working a bit of a day job. I'm kind of working a little bit more, on a freelance aspect and things like that. And that's almost 10 years in is basically kind of when that sort of flipped over. I think there's a lot of people who get into this now who want to become, want this to become their day job as soon as possible. Right. And I can understand it. If you really hate your day job, I can understand that. But what what it seems like is then you have to really super kind of play the YouTube game, and then in that situation, that kind of really kind of steers your content, maybe not into a way that is good long term. It's hard to say. It also steers the way, like, you kind of end up seeing some channels just taking every different type of sponsorship ability that they can get. Like, I get literally probably twice a day, I get someone being like, hey, we're going to send you a 3D printer and you talk about it. And I'm like, no, I'm good, thanks. And you're like, oh, hey, what about, I don't know, Hello Fresh? Like, do you want to do a cooking stream? What? No. Like, I always love how they're like, we love your content. We all watch it here. We've got this cooking stream idea for you. And I'm like, you're not watching my content, I think, if that's the case, But yep. So yeah, I think that it's one of those things that you have to be a little bit more patient for. But there are definitely kind of games you can play in this day and age that can try to help, like, at least boost views, but maybe not necessarily long-term stuff or whatever. I like the fact that the videos are, a lot of the stuff, most of the stuff I like to make is very evergreen. I like the fact that somebody's like, I got to paint this power sword. How do I paint a power sword? And they type in how to paint a power sword, and they're going to find a video that, Sam was on my channel teaching you how to paint a power sword, 8 years ago or something like that or whatever. And so, I mean, they don't necessarily get immediate traction. They don't get velocity when you do a tutorial or whatever, but they do, I think, help people out, and that's the most important thing. But they also do pull, views over time, so that's cool too.
Yep. Cool. The perfect sort of transition to the next slide that I have, which is the thumbnail of a view with the "How can you help support tabletop wargaming?"
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember the point of the. I mean, I'm trying to remember the video, but it was predominantly. I'm assuming it was along the same lines of talking about how to. One of the things I like to do is sometimes go to local conventions, and then, which are very frequently very genre agnostic, for lack of a better word, which is so you go to Gen Con, they got miniature games, they got, well, not a lot, they've got some, but they've got board games, they've got RPGs, they've got, trading card games, all that stuff is there. But then you go to something like Adepticon where it's predominantly just, miniature games.
Yep.
So local conventions, small conventions like that have a tendency to be more like Gen Con, not in scope, but in, we whatever you want to run and play here, thanks. You know what I mean? So when I go to little mini conventions, or, not miniature mini, but you know what I'm saying, small local conventions, I like to go and run games like Song of Blades and Heroes from Ganesha,
Yep.
one of the two games. And it's a very simple, very elegant kind of system, fantasy skirmish that's really easy to like teach. Like you can have people come over and sit down and just be like, look, I'm going to teach this to you. It's very, very quick, and you can get the hang of it very quickly. And then I like to use, I have these pre-painted D&D models from like way back in the day when Wizards of the Coast was producing a D&D skirmish game where you bought like a box and you didn't know what was in it. It was kind of like HeroClix, but without the clicky bit,
Right, yep.
And they were also doing a Star Wars one at the time as well. And so I've bought a bunch of those like D&D miniatures because I can then hand those off to people, and they're kind of bendy. They're not going to get the paint chipped off. You know what I mean? Like they're nearly indestructible. Like if you get a bunch of Cheeto stuff all over them, I'll throw them in the sink. It's great. But then I'm running all the necromancer and all the skeletons, and I've painted up all the skeletons, or some of them actually I paid a guy to paint up as well. So there's kind of a mixture of my skeletons and this other guy's skeletons and all this kind of stuff, and they're all nicely painted and whatever. And so I'm controlling those, and then you folks, you each have a group of whatever, kind of 3 heroes generally, and you kind of have your own little war band, and going and teaching that kind of stuff at small conventions gets people who've never played miniatures before to start taking a look at it and understanding it a little bit better. So that's one of the big things, and just becoming a gaming advocate. I always talk about, if there's a game that you like, especially if it's like a skirmish game, you build and paint 2 forces, and then you just say, look, let's sit down and play. Pick whichever force you think looks coolest, and we'll do it. As opposed to being like, well, I'm sad that nobody plays Malifaux in my area, so I'm not going to do anything about it. If you want somebody to start playing Malifaux, you have to build and paint 2 Malifaux crews and then try to get people to start playing with your stuff. That's just the that kind of thing.
Super fantastic that you used Malifaux as the example there, but I'm sure Jake is super excited there.
Oh, it's hilarious to me. I think part of the reason that we've always gone along is that I think we have a very similar mindset in terms of like wanting to be an advocate for gaming, right? Like a big thing that we talk about all the time in the store, and like Big Rick Ankeny and stuff, like he'll say the same thing, which is like
on this weekend,
yeah. So his like, it's always like, look, I want to play a game, like I need somebody to sit across from me and play this game. So if you're putting out like, hey, this is what it is, and this is why I'm excited about it, and this is why you might like it, you're always gonna, always think you're gonna get a better response than doing the opposite, which is kind of weird depending on where you are. Like I've heard people do the opposite, which is like, oh, why are you playing that game? Like I don't like that game. You should play this game that I like instead. Exactly. And I'm like, listen, don't yuck my yum because you like something else. Like I'm happy to learn another game. What I don't want to do is hear you talk about how you don't like the game that I like. Why am I now encouraged to play your game?
Right. So, it's a thing. I did a video about this for like why we don't like other people's choices. This is years back too, and it's just a psychology thing. It is, if I've made a choice and then I see you making a different choice, I start to question my choice potentially, and then that makes me, fearful or whatever. And so, yeah, exactly. So when you see somebody, especially in the gaming situation, because if everybody's playing this one game and you're playing a different game, it's going to be real hard to get some of those people to play your game. And then you have to ask yourself, well, did I make the wrong, decision? Are they going to stop making my game because everybody's playing this other game? I mean, that's the thing that we've all gone through. Right. So that's kind of where that kind of comes from. And you sitting there and saying, well, that game's dumb, you should play this game, is that person thinking, I am nervous about my game or whatever the deal might be. And it's just a psychology thing that I think our dumb lizard brains make us do from time to time, but we can try to overcome it if possible.
Yeah, no, I think working hard towards that is always important. It's that opportunity to learn more about things you might not know about. Tell me more about this game that you're playing. I haven't heard about it.
Right, exactly.
We were talking just before the show about Twisted, right? So
right, which was I haven't heard of, but
let's learn more.
Did you say it was Australian?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
okay, sure.
A few guys in Australia. But yeah, we can talk more about that after the show. But yeah, no, that's cool. I think anything that any of us can do to keep pushing that idea forward and be comfortable, be happy with what you're playing, for sure.
Yeah.
And be comfortable with people playing other things than what you're playing.
I think that we need to get normalized in playing more than one game too.
Sure.
I think that there's a lot of people out there who are like, no, I'm a Warhammer player, or no, well, there's not a lot else other, very few people say I'm an only one thing player, but Warhammer players do frequently do. Sure, yeah, exactly. But so you have a type or an interest area, but to just play like one game, that's why I love miniature agnostic stuff so much, is because I can take these models and be like, okay, well, I got these models over here. I'm going to put them over here now into this other game, which has got different rules, which are interesting to me, or a different type of story, or whatever the deal is that kind of drives you, and then just kind of go from there, Whereas if you're like, well, these models are for this game, and I only buy these models for this game, that, I think it's a good idea for people to kind of spread their wings a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think now, especially like we're in like a golden age of gaming. Like there are so many different, like, not even just miniatures. There's so many RPGs. There's so many board games right now. There's so many card games right now. I have people that come into my store and they're like, I don't really play games. And I was like, what's your favorite movie? And they'll tell me, and I'll be like, there's a game for that. Or they're like, oh, I really liked this game. And I'm like, well, there's a board game that's based on that. Or there's a miniatures game. Or there's a role playing game.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, did you like Stranger Things? Yeah. I'm like, they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, there's also a game that's like Stranger Things, like you were playing as kids in a fictional 1980s. Like, there's so much stuff. A big one for me is RPGs. I've played probably 60 different systems, and I have a friend who is kind of like the opposite of what you're talking about. He'll go, oh man, I don't want to learn another system, and I'm like,
right.
Why? Like it doesn't cost you anything. Like, we'll teach you how to do it. Do you want to play this game?
Yeah, no, I think that some people are like, this is the ecosystem in which I live, and I don't want to change, and that's it's what they are interested in doing or whatever. But I do try to like hope that maybe you could spread around a little bit, just because I think it. Not only just because I, admittedly am invested in and whatever in different game systems, indie stuff, and I enjoy it myself, but also produce it and all that kind of jazz. But also just because I think it gives you a wider view of the gaming landscape, and you start to understand that there are other different types of games. Maybe you've been playing this game for a long time because it's super well known or whatever, and you're always like, yeah, this is fine. But then eventually you find some other weird thing, an indie thing or whatever, and that really is what you always wanted. You just didn't know because you were only ever playing the one type of game. And so that's, I think, a big benefit to help you kind of expand your hobby.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about starting a new game, or playing a new game that some of my friends are interested in, and they've built up a number of forces for. If I'm not super keen to get into that genre or whatever, also I have a thing where rules don't. It takes me a few plays through a game for rules to stick with me.
Sure, everybody is like that, I think.
So I can go into a game and play the warband, play the army the way that I think it would be cool, or do things during the game that I think would be cool, and they can let me know what the rules are, and then I can find out whether they were cool or not, right? But at the same time, I can have more fun. I feel like I'm having more fun in the game because the result doesn't matter. So I'm trying. I'd like to win. That would be cool. But if I don't win, that's not a problem, because as long as we're having a fun game along the way. Whereas something like, perhaps something like 40K, if I'm more invested in it, and I've painted my army, and I've painted the characters, and I've named them, and I've got them in this thing, I don't want those guys to die. I want them to achieve their objectives. I want them to play the game. I'm going to feel... I might have a high or a low with that, whereas with a game that I'm not as invested in, and I'm just trying out, it's like I can feel more comfortable with.
I was talking with Sam Lenz about this recently too. Yeah, like when you lose a 4-hour game, that is a super bummer. You know what I mean? Kind of, because you'd be like, oh, geez. But when you lose like a 45-minute or an hour-long game, you're like, okay, let's re-rack and do it again. So that's
switch sides.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, no, I agree. I have a saying, and I like to say to people, if you won. Or no, I screwed it up. If you had fun, then you won. You know what I mean? Like, whether you win or lose doesn't matter. Did you have fun? It's a game. That's kind of the point. You're supposed to have fun with games. You know what I mean? So yeah, I like to if I can get it to the words to go in the right order, I like to say that kind of stuff to people. So yeah.
I'm with you. Like Dave and I've talked at length about, like, I have a special part of my black heart that is reserved for vitriol towards people who like are meta chasers and like super competitive players and like ultra captain tryhards, and it just makes me laugh because I'm like, that's not. I mean, if that's your hobby, like, that's great, good for you. It like, well, I play a lot of Magic at the store, obviously, because we have a huge community, and the kids will be like, "Oh, do you want to cut my deck because I shuffled it?" And I'm like, "No." And then someone will go, "What if he's cheating?" I was like, "If he's cheating to win a game of Magic, he needs to win more than I do. Like, I don't like I don't care."
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think that if more people felt of it, like, am I having a good time? Am I having fun? Cool, that's what it's all about. It would just be easier. It would just be easier to get along with everybody that we play with. And like, it's up to us and the people who think like us to go, hey, I'm here to have fun and like have a good time and look at these minis and roll some dice and hang out with my friends. Like, I will always have a better time doing that than playing some ultra competitive list and being like, oh, you tabled that guy. Like, did I have fun? Yeah, because I wanted to move Space Marines around on the board. But like, I'd rather play a game with the three of us screwing around. And like, you know what I mean? Like, that's my idea of a good time. That's why I do this stuff. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, like, I walked around at Adepticon, and I know that those people, I'm not trying to yuck their yum at all, but those people look real serious. Like, those people are real serious at the 40K championship. And I'm like, God love them, but I'm like, I don't want to be that serious when I'm there trying to have a good time. That seems like a lot of work. But that's the difference between, the different people in the hobby. And that's why it's kind of cool that the hobby can be that way.
Yeah. I think that my favorite thing about Adepticon, we talked about this when Hank was on, is the friendly. Mm-hmm. The friendly just seems awesome. Everybody's having a great time. Everybody's having a good showing with their army. Like Dave was saying, I painted my guys like this is Volstroy and he's my my mechanic, and then this is this guy and he's my heavy weapons guy. And like, as long as they get to do the thing, like that's fun. I used to be a competitive player back in the day, just because like I had fun playing and I played so often that I knew how my army worked and it was easy to like win and do well, and I'd go to tournaments. And I think one of the worst experiences I ever had was I still won. I won Best Sportsman, and I came in, I think, 3rd overall. But at the tournament, I didn't have as much fun as I could have, because in one of my games, me and this other player were playing, and he was like, oh, I screwed something up. Do you mind if I do that differently? I was like, yeah, man, whatever. I don't care. So he was like, so we redid it. And then at the end of the game, like, we're closing in on objectives. And I did the whole, movement phase, shooting phase, assault phase. And I was like, okay, movement phase, I'm going to go to shooting. And then I was like, oh, I forgot to move that guy. I haven't started rolling dice. Do you mind if I move that? And he's like, well, you already said you're going to your shooting phase. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. Like, I was just like, this guy, this is a whole other thing that people enjoy. I don't need this. So
yeah, no, I totally get it.
But
okay. So speaking of getting people together and having fun, with their gaming. We're going to switch to a photo here from, I think this was from Tabletop Minions Expo 2022, possibly 2023 this year. Earlier.
I don't know if there's many pictures yet of 2023 up. Not that I've put up necessarily, but there could be.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot of Robotech mechs, which I'm assuming you're using for BattleTech.
Oh, that was a big, that was from, I believe, the Chicago Skirmish Wargamers. They're a group out of Chicago, strangely enough. Yep. And they come up and run a big kind of mech battle. Like, those guys are like, those models are, I don't know, like, 8 to 10 inches high. Yep. And they like have a lot of fun with that stuff. It's a very cool setup. But yeah, it's I started this Tabletop Minions Expo back in I think 2017, I think. Okay. It basically was it's just a small convention that people come to. And when I say small, I mean small. Like, this year was 80, I think, people.
Okay.
We just a bunch of GMs just come and run games, and then everybody sits down and just plays demos of games. There's no tournaments, there's no painting competitions, anything like that. It is just all getting to learn new games. Some stuff is stuff brought by designers, so they're like, hey, I need playtesting help. Or sometimes it's like, hey, this game's out now, and if you want to try it out, you can try it out. Sometimes it's well-known stuff like Shadespire or Necromunda. I think the same year that this game was getting played there was also Ash Waste had just come out in 2022 or whatever, and so there was a guy that was running demos of Ash Waste. He'd painted everything all up and everything like that. There was one-page rules stuff as well, like Grimdark Future and Grimdark Future Firefight. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun. This year, 2023, because it always happens in like the early part of June here in Wisconsin. This year was the first year we had painting classes.
Okay.
So Sam Lenz, Vince Venturella, and Ninjan were each teaching 2 classes, and they had, I think, 16 seats each, and those all sold out, and they were very, it was a lot of fun. So we're going to try to expand that again next year to maybe get a couple more teachers in there. But yeah, no, it's just kind of a fun thing. It was glad to bring it back after the pandemic. Generally what happens is on Saturday night, so like the thing is on Saturday and Sunday, and then Saturday night, I think we close up at 10 because we have to lock up or whatever, because the university, we do it at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh in the Grunhagen Conference Center down in the basement, because, we're basement people. It's the way it works.
Everybody feels at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Hang on,
But
so currently, I know that Jake is in his basement. I'm in my basement. Are you in your basement?
I'm technically in the living room, or dining room, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
I usually, most of my hobby gets done in the basement, but yeah, exactly. But yeah, so then usually on Saturday night, then we go to a couple of bars or whatever, and just kind of everybody sort of hangs around and has a good time. And then Sunday is more gaming. And then, yeah, it's like inexpensive and it's fun, and it's just, I don't know, it's a good time, and I enjoy having people come and hang out and play. But it's like a party, you know what I mean? So yeah. And you don't have to like bring like, oh, what army do I need to bring, or any kind of stuff like that. Stuff is, provided. You sit down and you're learning demos, and I like to see people. Specifically, I like to see people bring their like stuff that they're working on, whether it's like playtest stuff or stuff that they've already got out in production, like as an indie or whatever. This year we only had really 2 like vendor booths. It was technically me and Vince were one vendor booth, and then actually one-page rules. They are going to start going to conventions,
okay,
like Adepticon and Gen Con and things like that, and they used us basically kind of as a test bed.
Right.
So their community manager drove from like Kentucky or someplace and then set up a booth and was handing out stuff and running demos and doing things like that. So yeah, it was cool.
That's cool.
But yeah, we've got a little bit of room to expand and things like that. But we also, like I said, want to get a couple more teachers in there maybe, and then see how it goes.
Excellent. Okay,
we had a couple people comment. So somebody said Space Station Zero has been a lot of fun. Apparently that's from the guys at oh man, what is it? Where is it? Scott posted about it. It's
Snarling Badger? Is that?
Oh, Blackside Studios, I think.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, no, we're Snarling Badger.
Yeah, I know. I was just wondering there, but yeah, Scott said.
Josh asked about what's ASOBAH?
ASOB.
A Song of Blades and Heroes.
It's okay. Or Advanced Song of Blades and Heroes. There's 2 versions. Yeah, there's 2 versions.
So Josh said he really likes it. It's super easy to tweak and adjust it to various genres.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, they've produced for that game, like there's the regular one, which is fantasy, but then they've got Flying Lead. There's Faith and Fear, which is like vampires and werewolves and cool stuff. There's like a whole bunch of different versions. It's a great system.
Cool.
Tabletop Super Show says, Adam, are you and Vince planning on releasing a skirmish game every year or every other year?
Every year. We're technically more frequently than that now. We have a zine coming out in November, which is going to be an annual zine that we're going to put out, and it'll be PDF only. There's no print version, but you can print it if you want to. It'll be formatted so you can print it like in a booklet format, on 8.5 by 11, fold it in half, and then you got a 5.5 by 8.5. But yeah, that'll be coming out in November. There'll be what we're calling a micro game that'll be in there, which will be a little one-off kind of game, and then a couple of add-ons for our previous games will also be in there. We'll do that every November. But we're already at this point now, like that's currently in copy editing. It's been through playtesting and development, and it's in copy editing right now. And literally on Sunday we started, well, Vince had been working on it for a while, but we started in earnest on design, or writing, I guess. Design's kind of already been started, but the writing on the next game for next June. So this year we had Majestic 13 come out the day before TMX. That was not smart is what that was. that had a lot that me had me doing a lot of stuff that week leading up to it. So we're gonna try to put a week in between there. So probably the Friday, not the Friday before TMX, but the Friday, 2 Fridays before is when that'll come out. So it'll be late. The next game will come out in late May. The next thicker kind of color cover printed game will come out. Yeah, but we've been putting out. So far we've put out 3 games in 3 years. So we're gonna just decided let's turn it up a little bit.
So I've got covers of them here. Rain in Hell is the first one. So
that one is demons fighting demons in post-apocalyptic hell. It's all hand-to-hand combat. There's no shooting. It was designed initially to be basically a versus game. And then because it was the pandemic when we launched it in May of 2021, people were like, is there any way I could play this by myself? Because I can't go anywhere. And we were like, So we made an expansion actually called the Oculus Sphere, which added in co-op and solo play and like a 6-part kind of sequential, scenario. And then the second game is Space Station Zero.
Yep.
And that one we launched with solo and co-op built in right from the start. There's also a versus mode or adversarial mode or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's basically our bigger games that are going to come out in the spring are always going to be basically kind of aimed towards solo and co-op, but with also the ability to play, versus. So Space Station Zero was a hoot. Just like the art is spectacular. I found this great guy. His name's Will Kirkby. And the art is just spectacular, and so that was a lot of fun, and people have been really enjoying it.
This is one where I'm pretty sure that my Gene Stealer cult models can do double duty in Space Station Zero.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gene Stealer cults, Tau. I mean, like anything. Like the whole concept is that you've ended up at this space station out in the middle of literally nowhere. There's not a speck of dust. Anything else within thousands and thousands, if not millions of light years, you're really in the middle of nowhere. Like it's a place that shouldn't exist in the universe, except there's this one honking giant spaceship or space station, basically, that you've just popped out next to, and so there are just all kinds of different aliens just hanging around there who all got there the exact same way. So any kind of models that basically you could look at and go, those are aliens, they'll work. So
I want to use now that after seeing this art, I want to use the there was a little kid gang that you can use in Zombicide Invader.
Oh.
So it's one of the little gangs that you can buy, and I was like, man, they'd be great in this.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the most recent game, as I said, Majestic 13.
Yes, that one is, if you ever played XCOM on the PC, and if you ever watched X-Files, it's kind of those things a bit squished together somewhat. The name is based off of the conspiracy theory about a group called Majestic 12 that allegedly President Truman started back in '47 as a response to the Roswell crash. And it is evidently these 12 powerful men and all that kind of stuff who were then supposed to kind of research the alien menace and figure out what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking about it one day for reasons like I do. And I was like, if they ever had to vote on stuff, they would very easily be able to be 6 versus 6, and then they couldn't get anything done. And like, but Majestic 13, though, then that way there's a tiebreaker. And then it just sort of went from there. And in this, instead of it being 12 men or 13 men, it's 13 different organizations. There's the Ag League, which is basically the agricultural league. There's been crop circles in their corn for years and years, and they're tired of it. There's like a medical group, which is called the Hippocratic Mercy, and there's the 1%. There's the Naturalized, which is a group that not only is humans but also has some Greys who've been brought in. The Greys are aliens, but they are not the bad aliens. They're kind of on the run from the bad aliens. So there's like 13 different factions, and you build a team of 5 models who are going out. Like, oh, there's an alien spotted in such and such wilderness or in such and such urban center, and then you have to go there and fight him. It's a very asymmetrical game. It's 5-on-1 in most situations because you have one big alien, scary, and then 5 people that are trying to take it out. And there's bureaucracy involved. There's it's got a campaign mode. All the stuff that we build, we always like to have a nice campaign mode. Yeah, there's foo bars that can happen during the thing. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on. But yeah, so that one's a lot of fun as well. And again, pretty much anything can be an alien if you like believe in yourself, like just like in the videos that I did for the intro, both of those monsters are D&D monsters from like one of those whiz kids, like those pre-primed guys,
Yep.
So yeah, it's as long as you just spray it with a bunch of weird iridescent like turbo dork or something like that, and make it look all crazy. Boom, they're aliens. It's easy. I mean, if it's an orc and he's obviously got a sword, that's going to be a kind of a bit of a hard sell. But any kind of creature can be pretty much be an alien. Cool. So yeah.
All I can hear now is the sound where the aliens get the drop on one of your guys in XCOM. That.
Mm-hmm. What was it that? What was the genesis of this? I've asked a lot of starting points. What was the starting point of Snarling Badger Studios? Why are you and Vince doing this on top of all the other things that you're doing?
Honestly, because because we were like, so I had the idea pre-pandemic. I had the idea for Rain in Hell. I'm like, I got this idea for this game. I think it'd be kind of cool. I know Vince is a game designer. I've got design background a little bit, but honestly, he's much more the writer, much more the mathematician, much more that kind of stuff. I'm the art director, layout guy, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So we work well together as both halves in that situation. So I had reached out and talked to him about it earlier, and then like in 2019 or whatever. And then in, the pandemic happened, and sometime around October of 2020, I was just like, there's nothing going on. So I was like, hey, do you want to start working on this? And he was like, yeah, let's do that. So then we just started from there. And probably about 6 months into that beginning of that project, I remember having a conversation with him. We usually meet on Sunday nights on Discord. And I was like, hey, do you want to keep doing this? And he's like, what do you mean? Like, don't you? I'm like, no. I mean, do you want to, after we get this one done, do you want to do another one? Do you want to like make this a company, or is this like a one and done, like, one off? And he's like, oh yeah, no, let's continue doing it. So yeah, it's worked out well like that. The books are just books. It's just a very, you can buy it as a PDF. They're print on demand. The print on demand quality is very good. Yep. If you buy the print on demand, you get the PDF as well for free. We don't like upcharge you for that. Yep. We keep them real cheap. The most expensive book we've done so far is Majestic 13, because the reason it's most expensive is it's the longest one we've done. It's like 144 pages, right. And it's still less than $20. It's like $19 plus shipping.
Yep.
So we want these. Yeah, we want these to be very accessible to people. We don't want to be like, okay, well, the book costs $50 or $60 because it's hardcover and it's all color on the inside and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. We also don't want to go, well, here's the models you're supposed to use and you got to do this and here's that faction. We like give you a little bit of fluff, like a couple of pages of fluff with some pictures in there as well. So it kind of takes up some of the words. And we give you, we do that. And then after that, we kind of send you off to make your own kind of story, use the models that you want to use, all that kind of stuff. But it is literally just a book. And, we've had a lot of people ask us like, well, why don't you make miniatures? You should definitely make miniatures to go with these games. And we're like, we already got, this is our third job for both of us. So like it's making miniatures. I don't think people who play the games understand what a giant undertaking that is, making miniatures. It is massive. So yeah, there's plenty of companies out there who are already making miniatures for us. They're called the entire rest of the industry. So, we'll leave them to it, honestly.
Yep. No, fantastic. That's cool. I think it's, as you said, when I was asking the question, it wasn't from a, you shouldn't be doing this. It was like, this is a third, as I said, a third job. This is kind of crazy, but it is super awesome. And I think, I guess it also goes to that ethos of putting your money where your mouth is, and providing other ways to get into gaming, making things accessible, and
I mean, I can, I can sit here and talk about how like, oh, you should try other games, but I might as well make some so that you've got some other ones to try. You know what I mean? Yep. So, and I can tell you to try other games, but there's some games that I don't necessarily think, I don't necessarily want to play them, but the games that we make, I'm interested in doing that. So, and hopefully if you've been watching, my videos and Vince's videos and stuff like that, and you like what we're putting out, you probably are like-minded, and so this game would probably be interesting to you. And also it's not like super crazy expensive and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, like it's very simple, like to be able to just like get one of these, get some models, get some terrain, that can be pretty simple stuff. We don't try to make anything very bespoke. I refer to it as like down the road we may, who knows, but for the right now, like I always refer to it as the robot squirrel conundrum, which is basically if you make a game about robot squirrels, you're probably going to have to make robot squirrel models because nobody does that. Right. But if you make a model or a game about robot humans or robot anythings, or if you make a game about demons, again, a demon, as long as you believe in yourself, like there's tons and tons of things out there for people to use, stuff that they very probably already have.
There's a lot of things you can paint normally and then just paint some glowing eyes and there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Them on it.
There was a guy in our Discord who did a cabal for Rain and Hell, and it was just dudes in suits.
Right.
I'm like, yep, awesome. Cool. I could say, yep, I'm on board.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. So I want to let everybody know as well, there's a link down in the notes to Snarling Badger Studios. I think it's snarlingbadger.com. So but it's down there. You can go and check out, take a closer look at those games, which are super cool. We are at 8:30 at the moment. So we have got a quick speed run then through the photos from the Facebook group. So the Build, Paint, Play.
What do we
Facebook
got?
Group. Pardon? So yeah,
what do we got?
Should we jump straight into it?
Yeah.
This is probably the time we should also say, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all those fun things. There's a link down there as well to our new Instagram page, which will be firing up a little bit more over the coming weeks, and the Facebook group, Build, Paint, Play. So first up, we have it's a Malifaux model, but it's from Bing Lee. So I don't recognize this one. I think it's from the Neverborn faction, mainly because of Bing's use of the purple base rim there. He usually does his base rims by faction color, but a beautiful demonic looking model, which would work perfectly in Rain and Hell. I think.
Yeah, he's good.
Looking great. Very nice work there, Bing. Next up, I must admit I'm not sure who painted these, but Stephen Ryder shared these in the group. These from Chris Kohler in California from Slow Death Games. He makes a game called Wild in the Streets, which is a small skirmish gang warfare. So these are 3 new graffiti artists that are, I think this is on Kickstarter at the moment. I'm pretty sure, but search Kickstarter for Wild in the Streets or for Slow Death Games, and you'll find these cool graffiti artists. It's the miniatures are in the Kickstarter, not the backdrops, but definitely cool. I had a great conversation with Chris at Adepticon this year about graffiti and different terminologies.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, definitely cool. A lot of good ideas.
I forget where I got it from, but I have a transfer sheet that's all graffiti.
All right, cool. That's good. Next up, we've got Cliff Edders is painting some more old school stuff. So these are some of the orcs from the second edition 40k box set.
Old school.
Old school, indeed. One of the
Hey,
funny
what if
things...
we took some fantasy orcs and glued some bolters on them?
Pretty much. I think Cliff's done a great paint job, as usual, but I'm also intrigued by his bases. It looks like he's done the 25 to 32.
Oh, yeah, the rings, the upsize rings.
That originally, I think, Secret Weapon Miniatures did that upsizing.
Just means he's going to have to use a little more goblin green to paint those bases.
Just a little more. Probably twice as much per base. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, probably.
Next up, we have a heavily weathered rhino from Dan Osborne. Dan actually slipped this in as a comment on somebody else's post, but
Nice.
this one he's just gone to town with streaking grime and weathering. But I think Dan was teaching a weathering class at Nova, as well as coordinating all of the other instructors there. But we had Dan on as a guest in... Actually, I think it was our only guest in Season 1. The sound isn't particularly good, but you can go back and check out that video.
Yeah, he filled in on the one of the shows I couldn't make. It was Dave and Dan.
Yep. Next up, we've got some models from the game Judgment. These are painted up by Jeff Smith. I think these might also be part of the commission he's been working on. And these are some of the Earth Elementals. So Judgment is being produced and distributed by Creature Caster. It was actually written by Andrew and Jeff Galea from Australia as well. But cool stuff there from Jeff. Looking very nice. Next up, are you still around, Josh? I know that Josh is getting ready for his Twitch live stream. Oh no. Actually, no, he's not getting ready for his live stream. He's getting ready to go to work. I just noticed it in the chat. But transferring here, we've got the... I think this is a spaceship from Star Frontiers. So super old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it looks wonderful.
It does.
Josh has done a beautiful job there. Looks awesome. I think from the other side that... so it has that other tube, fuel pod, cargo tube on the other side. He's painted it yellow. But looks great. Nice work there, Josh. Then we've got Marvel Crisis Protocol, Colossus from Kelly Rowe. He's done an excellent job here. This I think we showed a Colossus from him 2 weeks ago, where he'd done non-metallic metals. He said that this time around he used metallic paints, and he is much happier with this result. So maybe not sure about the result, but he's certainly much happier using the metallic paints. So I suspect we'll get to see a bit more of that. But yeah, it looks fantastic. I love the damage on the edge of the on the edges of the Sentinel hand there. Looks really cool.
Yeah, all the Marvel Crisis Protocol models are great. They're really, really cool sculpts.
Absolutely. Talking about photographing cool little vignettes. Here's one from Christian Simonson. Christian always does some lovely paint jobs, lovely terrain and photography. So this is an old Escher Juve facing down a Neurolictor, one of the new Tyranid beasts.
She's got this. She just shoot him in the brain.
Shoot him in the brain. It's there. It's big. It's exposed. How could you miss it? Right?
It's pink. Aim at the pink.
Always. But and then also Christian posted the sort of the glamour shot of the Neurolictor. So that's coming up in a second.
Yeah, it's such a great model. I love that he put like the resin strands too, so it looks all like extra gross.
Yeah. Yep. So I think we're probably done with Uhu glue, which is super difficult to obtain in the US. I think it's out of Germany, but yeah, I know that I did hear that Mark Henry, who is the guy that imports the Dirty Down products into the US, is hopefully working on an alternative product.
He showed it to me at Nova.
Yeah.
It's like a pot of like a red kind of goopy stuff that he just like stuck a toothpick in and then just started spreading it around on some claws on it. And it's and when it dries, it's not so brittle as well. So that's kind of a benefit. Yeah. So they're still working on it a little bit. They're still trying to develop it some more. But yeah, that's an upcoming, and they're going to have a clearer version as well. So if you're looking for more like saliva versus like gore, that kind of stuff, I'm sure they'll put it in they'll probably put green and other things like that in there too.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's good. I'll have to give him a call. Maybe we can get Mark on the show in a month or two's time.
It's such a subtle thing, but it makes it look so much grosser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Next up, we've got a piece of box art, actually, I think, from Mike Hughes. So Mike painted up this piece for Mantic, which is basically a white king on a nightmare steed, with a fantastic piece of sort of Photoshop backdrop there. But I think you
Really
remember
cool.
this one. Seeing this one, Jake?
Yeah, the greens, his greens and his blues are always like so nice.
Yep. He's done a beautiful job here, and when you get up close to that steed's head, where it's got all of those multiple frightening spider eye kind of things.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah. It's
No,
super gross.
I do not want to pet this horse.
No? You don't want to feed it a snack?
Hard pass.
Hard pass? Okay. That's fair.
Dave, you go ahead. I'll watch.
I'm just not sure what to feed it as a snack. But anyway. Moving right along. Great work there, Mike. Beautiful. This one, I feel kind of bad about this. This wasn't posted in the group, but I know that Nate occasionally checks us out. This is from Nate Brooks, who is an awesome sculptor. But he's been working on his Sons of Horus for the Horus Heresy, and posted this cool pic. And one of the things I love about this, it shows that that idea of not all of your models in an army have to be identically uniform. They don't have to all have the same sort of color scheme. It's a little bit easier with the Sons of Horus because they have that clearly delineated. This is your regular infantry squad. These are your Justarian Terminators are in the black and the red. But then the choice to make the Land Raider fit that color scheme, and also the Leviathan Dreadnought at the back there. So the Dreadnought's obviously a former Justarian there, but as you're doing this with your own armies, you can create whatever color schemes you want and create the lore behind it to add a lot more depth to your armies.
It's really cool. I think that's one of the smartest things that GW ever did was starting to do like the different company breakdowns. So it's like, oh, I'm going to play Dark Angels. I don't really want to paint like 700 green dudes. And it's like, well, second company wears black, first company wears white. Like Scouts wear basically patchwork camo and then green plates. So I think it's really smart to do that. Almost every faction of Marines has some version of this, if not multiple versions of this. So yeah, I love it. And to your point, it breaks up the armor. It makes it look really nice, but still looks uniform.
Yep.
So,
yep, absolutely. I've done this kind of thing just quickly. I've done this kind of thing with Napoleonic armies as well. This is lovely too. The British Army had red coats, blue coats, green coats. Their allies were brown, white, all sorts of stuff. So definitely a lot of fun to keep you going through an army project. Next up, I mentioned that Dan Osborne posted that rhino as a comment to another post. This post was from Patrick Keith from Bombshell Minis, starting some work on some griming up his Sisters of Battle.
when I first saw this, I was like, why is there like a tin full of like aspirin or something or whatever those are? And then I was like, oh, those are little like makeup swab things.
The little buffers for removing the streaking grime from the upper surfaces. Have you messed around much, Adam, with streaking grime?
Yeah, I've done some of that stuff. I haven't done oil yet, but I've done enamel washes a number of times. Sometimes I do it with airbrush. Sometimes I do it just by brushing it on. But yeah, no, I've messed with it.
Cool, excellent. So I'm guessing there'll be a couple of videos on the channel.
There's at least one I know. I did. I worked on some Space Dwarves, not GW ones, but some 3D printed ones that I kind of showed, like how you very quickly block out the colors and then cover everything with a normal old crunchy brush or whatever in the AK. No, not the AK. Ammo by MiG, streaking grime, and then wait like 15-20 minutes and then start wiping it away and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
It's the same stuff. If it's ammo by MiG, or AK, it's all the same stuff.
All created by MiG. Next up, we have another mini from Marvel United from Scott Radham. Looking very cool here, Scott. And again, I'm going to show my ignorance of the Marvel universe.
That is Dazzler.
Dazzler. Fantastic. I am dazzled, Scott. She looks beautiful.
He did a great job on like the metal she's standing on too. Like Scott always does that weathering thing on like metals.
Yep. No, looking great. I love the blonde hair. I think it's got that nice blonde look rather than the... sometimes people tend to more towards the straw kind of look. But nice one there, Scott. Looking great. Next up, we've got a Blood Bowl. We were talking about Blood Bowl earlier. We've got a Blood Bowl player from the Amazon team. This is from Sean Gleason, who is in the chat. Hey, Sean. And this is Boa Constrictor.
Is that from the Amazon team or is that from the Lizardmen team?
Lizardmen team. My bad.
Yeah.
My bad. It could be an Amazon team, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. That's why.
Should be, maybe that's a star player who can play for both.
Yeah, he's using some proxies or something. Yeah, that's a great model, though.
Yeah. No, I think it looks fantastic. I think the, again, that wonderful choice of the sort of bluish teal for the armor plates and the orange for the sash and the headdress there. Looks fantastic, Sean. Amazon. Oh, there we go. This for the Amazon
Oh, it is?
team.
Okay.
Yes. Lucky guess, mine.
Interesting.
Awesome. Then we've got Stephen Ryder painting up some more of his epic squats army. Both epic in game and epic in nature.
Dude, the trikes are the best. He's got the old what are those? I think those are the old cataphract war robots in the background.
Yep.
So good.
But this project's definitely coming along wonderfully, Stephen. Looks awesome. Yep. Great stuff there.
Everybody loves trikes.
Tracks are wonderful. And our final mini for the show is from Jan. When he posted this, he was like, "Yes, Dave, it's not a squat. Not a dwarf." Because I've been hassling him about not painting up his Leagues of Votan. So he painted up a Vindicare assassin.
My favorite of the assassins.
Yeah, you like to sit back and take them from
Yeah, he's
range.
great. Yep. It's like, he parks himself like 2 miles away and just dots that eye.
Yep. Definitely cool. So, fantastic. Thanks very much for that, everybody, for all of your posts during the week. We'd love to continue to see more. There, as I said, that was a quick run through. There are a few that I had to skip. So if you're in the Build Paint Play group, and go and check out the posts. There's lots of great additional stuff. I think Kelly did a pyro and a human torch in there. So having a lot of fun painting flames this week. But yeah, lots of other great stuff in there. But that brings us to the end of another episode. I am just going to cue something up there.
We did it! We did it!
We made it! Hooray! Thank you very much for joining us, Adam. It was great having you on. Hope you enjoyed our special brand of lunacy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely super cool. So folks can obviously find you on Tabletop Minions YouTube channel. Is it also Tabletop Minions on Twitch?
Yes.
Twitch.tv/Tabletop Minions.
Yep.
Something like that. And you said, so that's Monday evenings?
Monday nights and Friday mornings.
Friday mornings. Cool.
Yeah.
Go and check those out. And then you have the every other Sunday.
Which is on YouTube, yep. The next one will be coming up this week.
And every Friday, you said there's a video that goes out?
Yeah, new video comes up, a recorded video comes up every Friday morning.
Cool. Excellent. So if you want to continue to see more cool, passionate stuff about basically making gaming more accessible, I guess. It's not just bringing new people to tabletop wargaming, but also breaking down those sort of preconceived notions about other games or other systems or other ways to play, other ways to paint. You can check out Adam and all of the cool stuff that he does.
For sure.
Super cool. But yeah, as I said, thanks very much for joining us, Adam. We really appreciate it. And
thanks for being here. It was great having you on.
Yeah,
really cool.
Thanks for having me.
Next week we'll be talking with Mike Tunez from Firelock Games. So we'll be talking about Blood and Plunder. And wonderfully enough, everything aligns perfectly. Next Tuesday is International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Gotcha.
So
Because of course it is.
yeah, I will say "arg" at the beginning of the show, and that will be about it. But we'll get Mike to see if we can do it for the entire episode.
But before we punch out, you said you had a question for Adam and I about cockpits or something. You're working on the canopies for your
Oh, okay.
for your Votan.
If you don't mind, Adam, I'll jump in and can I jump in and
What's
go with that? So I've spoken before. I think I might have answered some questions on in the Facebook group as well about clear canopies. And one of the things that I've done before for painting the little lines on them. I guess the little struts. I'm going to hold this up to the camera so you can see the gray lines that have been painted there.
Oh yeah. It's the framework of
the framework. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the word I'm looking for. Thank you. So the way I've done it before is I've actually hit it with like a matte varnish, then painted the framework in, like that spray matte varnish, painted the framework in because the matte varnish gives a lot better grip over it, and then painted it back with a gloss varnish and returned it to that clear, glossy sort of finish. I did a tester the other day for I'm working on my Sagittars, surprise, and did a tester on a piece of clear plastic, hit it with the spray, got that matte finish, then painted it over with the gloss varnish, brushed it over with the gloss varnish, and got the that clear transparency again. Then I went and tried it, and so it was like, okay, fantastic, it still works. I'm not mad. But then I went and tried it on one of the Sagittor canopies, and unfortunately, we can't quite see it there. There we go.
You frosted it.
I got some frosting. So when I didn't get as much of it on the side panels, but certainly on the thing there. So I got some frosting, and so I was like, okay, well, let me just paint back over it. And I got the gloss finish back, but the frosting was still there. Have you guys seen that before? Is this...
No, I've not. I mean, I guess I don't do a lot of stuff with canopies. I mean, but when I do, I just use the the plastic glue stuff that doesn't fog them as much. But that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
This is more about the matte varnish and the. Yeah, no, I haven't come across that before.
Okay.
So
Jake?
we had so one of our guys painted a unit of the Warhammer Underworld's warbands.
Yep.
Like he did like the 3 Sigmarite dudes, and he painted them all up, had them all ready to go, and like I matte varnish or satin varnish everything that I paint when it's done.
Yep.
Just so like the oils in your fingers over time don't rub them off or whatever.
Right.
So he's like, okay, cool. So he went to varnish them, and I guess he had an older can of varnish at the house.
Oh yeah.
And it frosted the models.
Right.
And he was super
Usually,
mad.
then you would spray gloss over it because it'll take it away, but
Yep.
it doesn't always work, unfortunately. I think.
Yeah, he was super mad, and I was like, I actually think it looks really cool. It makes them look kind of like icy, and they were fighting a bunch of like the undead we had done. We made them look really cold and like sort of frozen. We did like frozen bases on them, so it actually kind of tied them together. But yeah, to Adam's point, like hopefully if it's just the way that it finished, the gloss should work. But it looks like yours, like it's almost like something went wrong with the varnishing process, and it like crystallized on the canopy.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a way to undo that, unless you could try putting it in like simple green, and maybe you could like brush it off because it's actually the layer. But I don't know.
Okay, I'll think of that. I'll mess around with a few things and report back and let you know how it goes. So what?
I usually do all my canopies metallic.
Yeah.
Like Oakley lenses, I'll paint them gold. I'll paint them gold, and I'll do washes on them, so they look like they're all iridescent, or they're like polarized.
Yep.
But yeah, very rarely do I try to do clear canopies.
It would have saved me a couple of hours on the pilots, but I do really like the look of being able to look through the canopies and see the pilots in there. So, but for the rest of them, the rest of the models I was working on at the time, so I've got my second Hecaton, and the other two Sagittars. I actually went and painted the framework. Well, basically, I mixed up like a thicker paint. I found some of my thicker, darker paints like brown and a dark gray, and mixed them together, and then just painted that over the glossy plastic. And sometimes there was a little bit of beading, but sometimes there wasn't. But thankfully, I was able to, just with a little bit of repetition and then some highlighting, get them to work. But okay, I'll try a couple more things on these. Otherwise, I might be in the market for a sprue of Sagittor canopies.
Hey, does anybody have just a Sagittor canopy?
And they don't want the rest of it. I don't know. Maybe. Oh, I know what we could do, but I'll tell you that later. But no, all good. Cool. Thank you very much, guys. So there we go. End of the show. Jake, would you like to close this out?
Sure. So thanks for joining us, everybody. It was awesome to have this many people on asking questions. You had a lot of fans in the chat. A lot of people were really excited that you were on. So I appreciate you for being on. And it's always a good time talking to you. Make sure everybody like and subscribe. Do all the stuff you're supposed to do down below. Hit the bell for notifications. Do the same for Adam. Follow him over there. He's got some great content. Adam's on this side of me now. He's got some great content over there. So we'll see you guys next week. And as always, don't forget to build, paint, play.
Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.